A violinist is suing Will Smith, claiming retaliation after he alleges that he was fired for reporting harassment while on tour with Smith. Brian King Joseph filed the lawsuit in California earlier this week, accusing Smith of deliberately grooming him for sexual exploitation.
Will Smith's team just fired a musician for reporting a personal threat in his hotel room, then replaced him the same day. Everyone assumed this was just another messy lawsuit, a quick payoff, a story that would fade before the next tour stop, until the violinist's lawyer dropped the receipts, a handwritten note signed Stone F, a bottle of HIV medication with someone else's name, hospital discharge papers for a stranger, and a bottle left like a calling card in a Las Vegas hotel room booked by Smith's own management. The lawsuit, filed December 30th, claims Smith's tour manager shamed the violinist, called his trauma a lie, and cut him loose within 72 hours. While Smith himself stayed silent, posting vacation photos from Egypt as his legal team labeled the allegations false, baseless, and reckless. But here's what doesn't track. If this was all a setup, why did hotel security confirm no forced entry? And if it was a smear, why did Smith's crew hire a replacement violinist before the first one was even off payroll? This isn't just a he said, she said, it's a system cracking, and the next leak is going to reveal exactly who was in that room, who gave the order to bury it, and why Will Smith's empire is suddenly scrambling to shut down the story before it reaches the one place he can't control, a courtroom.
Yeah, Kate, so according to the complaint, this all happened in March of last year while the violinist was on tour with Will Smith for Smith's global tour for his latest album based on a true story. And according to the complaint, there was this intrusion at his Las Vegas hotel room. He came back to his hotel, he says, and found that there was no forced entry, but that someone had entered the room and left a number of items there.
The official version, as laid out in Smith's lawyer's statement, is simple: false, baseless, and reckless. Alan B. Grodsky didn't just deny the allegations. He framed them as an attack on Smith's character, a reckless attempt to extort a man who'd already been through enough. But here's the problem with that defense. It doesn't explain the replacement violinist. Joseph was let go on March 23rd, and by the next leg of the tour, someone else was in his spot. That's not how firings for poor performance work. That's how firings for liabilities work. And it's not just the timing that's suspicious. It's the silence. Smith hasn't addressed this himself. No Instagram statement, no interview, no "let me be clear." Just his lawyer's scripted denial and a carefully curated feed of vacation photos from Egypt and Botswana, as if the whole thing is beneath him. But people in the industry know better. When a star of Smith's level stays this quiet, it's not because he's ignoring the noise, it's because he's waiting for it to pass.
Sure, if he is able to prove, right, that there was a retaliatory termination, that he went forward with these allegations, that he said that he felt unsafe, that he felt that there was some sort of harassment that was in existence here, and that complaint was the basis of his termination.
What's being whispered now is that this wasn't just about a single incident. It was about control. Joseph wasn't some random hire. He'd been brought in months earlier after performing at Smith's San Diego shows in December 2024. Smith himself had told him, "You and I have a special connection I don't have with anyone else." That's the kind of line that sounds flattering in the moment and sinister in hindsight. By March, Joseph was fully embedded in the tour, his room booked by Smith's team, his key in a van controlled by Smith's crew, the same van where his bag went missing for hours before the intrusion. No forced entry, no alarms. Just a room that had been accessed, a note left behind, and a man who suddenly became a problem. The question isn't just who left those items, it's who made sure Joseph would be the one to find them. And then there's the matter of Stone F. The name doesn't match any known alias of Smith's, any of his inner circle, or anyone on the tour roster. But the handwriting on that note wasn't just casual, it was intimate. The heart doodle, the just us, the specific time mentioned as if this were a planned rendezvous. Someone wanted Joseph to know this was personal. Someone also wanted him to know they'd be back. The police report, such as it was, went nowhere. Hotel security found no signs of a break-in, which means whoever entered had a key, or knew how to get one. Smith's team had the keys. Smith's team had the access. And Smith's team was the one who fired Joseph the moment he spoke up. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern.
Shocking allegations against Will Smith, a violinist who was a finalist on America's Got Talent and performed in Smith's band, is accusing the star of predatory behavior.
The replacement violinist is the detail that turns this from a he said, she said into something uglier. When you fire someone for cause, you don't have their successor lined up before the ink on the termination notice dries. When you fire someone for reporting something, you do. And when the person you're firing is the only one raising alarms about a potential security breach on your own tour, you don't just let them go. You make sure they can't talk. Joseph's lawsuit doesn't just allege personal harassment, it alleges retaliation. That's the part Smith's lawyer isn't addressing. That's the part that suggests this wasn't about Joseph at all. It was about sending a message to anyone else who might think about speaking up. But here's where the story starts to bend. The HIV medication. It didn't belong to Joseph. It didn't belong to anyone on the tour, at least not officially. So why was it there? Was it planted to frame someone? Left behind by mistake? Or was it a warning? Something meant to intimidate, to suggest consequences beyond just losing a job. The hospital discharge papers raised the same question. Whose were they? Why were they in that room? And why, when Joseph reported all of this, did Smith's team never once call the hotel to verify his story? They didn't check the security footage. They didn't follow up with police. They just fired him and moved on. That's not how innocent people behave. That's how people behave when they already know the answer. The other thing no one's explaining is the timing. Joseph's Instagram post from December 27th, 3 days before the lawsuit dropped, wasn't just a vague warning. It was a direct shot. Getting fired or getting blamed or shamed or threatened for reporting personal misconduct or safety threats at work is not okay. He didn't name Smith. He didn't have to. The message was clear. I tried to do the right thing and they destroyed me for it. Smith's team had to have seen that. They had to have known what was coming. And yet, they did nothing to prepare a real defense. No preemptive statement, no leaked proof of Joseph's supposed lies. Just silence until the lawsuit forced their hand. That's not confidence. That's damage control.
And you have all those causes of action under the California law, statutory law, regarding retaliation. And there's the allegation there, right? And of course, a pleading, complaint in the civil arena, you just have to make out the allegations enough to get into the courtroom. But there are certain aspects of claims like this that I think on this particular complaint, especially against Will Smith individually, that this individual, the plaintiff, may have a difficult time having that claim survive.
And then there's the matter of Jada Pinkett Smith's own legal troubles. Just a month before Joseph filed his suit, a former associate named Bilal Salam sued her for $3 million, alleging violent threats and coercion over an NDA. The Smiths called him an opportunist. Their inner circle dismissed it as noise. But the timing is too neat. 2 lawsuits in 2 months, both accusing the Smiths of using intimidation to silence people who crossed them, both plaintiffs claiming they were threatened, shamed, and discarded when they spoke up. Both cases met with the same strategy: deny, attack, and wait for the storm to pass. That's not a coincidence. That's a playbook. What's becoming clear is that this isn't just about a violinist in a hotel room. It's about how Will Smith's empire handles threats. Joseph wasn't the first. The real question is how many others there have been, and what happened to them when they tried to speak. Because the one thing that's certain is this: when a man like Will Smith stays silent, it's not because he has nothing to say. It's because he's already decided what the world is allowed to hear. And right now, the only thing standing between that decision and the truth is a violinist with receipts, a lawyer who's taken down bigger names, and a note signed by someone no one can explain. The next move isn't Smith's, it's theirs. And if the past is any indication, it's going to be brutal.
That Bilal says that Jada went up to him at a party back in November 2021.
The deeper you dig into Brian King Joseph's case, the more it starts to look like a single thread in a much larger pattern. This isn't just about one musician or one hotel room. It's about how power protects itself. And Will Smith's power isn't just built on talent or charm. It's built on control. The same week Joseph's lawsuit dropped, insiders started talking about the way Smith's team operates. A tight, loyal circle where problems don't get solved, they get buried. The replacement violinist wasn't just a practical move. It was a signal to the crew, to the industry, to anyone else who might think about speaking out. You cross the line. You disappear. Not with drama, not with scandals. Just quietly, professionally, like you were never really there at all. That's how these things work when the stakes are this high. And the stakes for Smith right now aren't just about one lawsuit. They're about Disney deals, about brand partnerships, about the carefully constructed image of a man who spent decades convincing the world he's the good guy. One wrong move, one unburied story, and that all collapses. So when Joseph's lawyer, Jonathan Delshad, started asking questions, the response wasn't just legal. It was strategic. Because Delshad isn't some ambulance chaser. He's the same attorney who took on Tyler Perry in a series of lawsuits alleging retaliation against actors who rejected advances. That's not a coincidence. That's a specialty. And the fact that Smith's team didn't see that coming suggests they were too busy managing the fallout to notice the pattern. What's telling is how Smith's inner circle reacted, or didn't. No one leaked damning texts from Joseph. No one dug up old social media posts to paint him as unstable. No one even bothered to produce a single witness to contradict his story. Instead, they went with the nuclear option. Call him a liar, call the claims baseless, and let the silence do the rest. But silence only works when the story isn't spreading. And this one is. Because the details don't just raise questions, they demand answers. The HIV medication, the hospital papers, the note signed by someone no one can identify. These aren't just random objects, they're clues. And the fact that Smith's team never once tried to explain them, never once offered an alternative theory about who might have left them or why, speaks volumes. You don't ignore evidence unless you're afraid of where it leads. And in this case, the trail doesn't just lead to a hotel room. It leads to a system.
That's 100% true. And you and I both know from a legal perspective to make a very public case and a very public claim against a high-profile celebrity when there are avenues in the law where someone could file a lawsuit anonymously. I'm not saying that's what your client wanted to do or not, but sometimes there's an avenue. That goes to a clear issue of credibility, and it goes to a clear issue of why do this.
Then there's the matter of the key. Joseph's bag containing his room key went missing for hours before the intrusion. The van it was in? Controlled by Smith's crew. The room itself? Booked by Smith's management. No forced entry, no signs of a struggle, just a violation that could only have happened with inside access. That's not negligence, that's complicity. And it's not the first time Smith's team has been accused of playing fast and loose with the truth. Remember Bilal Salam, the former associate who sued Jada Pinkett Smith for $3 million, claiming she threatened him with violence and tried to force him into signing an NDA? The Smiths called him an opportunist. Their friends dismissed the case as nonsense. But the parallels are impossible to ignore. A man reports misconduct, the Smiths deny everything, and the accuser gets painted as the villain. The only difference this time is the receipts. Joseph didn't just tell his story, he documented it. Photos of the note, records of his reports, a paper trail that doesn't just support his claims. It makes the Smiths' silence look like an admission, and that silence is the most damning part. Smith hasn't just avoided addressing the allegations. He's acted like they don't exist. Vacation photos, promotional interviews, business as usual. But that's the thing about men like Smith. They don't get to his level by panicking. They get there by controlling the narrative. And right now, the narrative is slipping. Because Joseph isn't some anonymous accuser. He's a talented musician with a public platform, a lawyer who knows how to fight these battles, and a story that's too specific to dismiss. The note, the medication, the immediate firing, the replacement. These aren't coincidences. They're pieces of a puzzle. And the picture they're forming isn't just about a single incident. It's about a culture.
And just used him. I absolutely believe that Sean Diddy Combs would do things to Brashear Gray. I absolutely believe that Brashear Gray was violated by both of these men. That in itself is a believable narrative to me. Why? Because Brashear Gray right now is online on OnlyFans getting turned out by multiple men, creating this OnlyFans content, trying to create money from it, and etc. So I can even see that taking place. I can imagine somebody being taken advantage of when they're young, being essayed when they're young, and that in itself can lead to problematic, aggressive behaviors, which is why they end up in prison.
What's being whispered in industry circles is that this isn't the first time something like this has happened. Not with Smith, and not in his orbit. The difference is that most people don't have the resources or the platform to fight back. Most people get paid off, or intimidated, or simply worn down until they go away. But Joseph isn't most people, and Delshad isn't most lawyers. He's the kind who doesn't just file lawsuits, he builds cases. The kind who knows how to turn a single incident into a pattern into a liability, and a liability into a reckoning. That's why Smith's team isn't just denying the claims. They're trying to discredit the messenger, because if Joseph's story holds up, it doesn't just threaten Smith's reputation, it threatens the entire machine. The other thing no one's talking about is the timing. Joseph's lawsuit dropped in December. By January, Smith's team is already moving to dismiss it. That's not how you handle a frivolous case. That's how you handle a threat. And the fact that they're pushing so hard, so fast, suggests they know exactly what's at stake. Because this isn't just about money, it's about survival. Smith's career has always been about redemption, from the Fresh Prince days to the Oscar slap to the carefully staged comeback. But redemption requires a narrative, and right now, that narrative is cracking. The question isn't just whether Joseph's claims are true, it's whether they're the tip of the iceberg. And then there's the matter of Stone F. The name doesn't match anyone in Smith's known circle. It doesn't match any aliases, any stage names, any nicknames. So who is it? A plant? A scapegoat? Or someone Smith's team is protecting? Because if this was just a random intrusion, why hasn't anyone come forward to claim responsibility? Why hasn't Smith's team offered a single alternative explanation? The only logical answer is that they can't. Not without exposing something. Or someone. They'd rather keep hidden. That's the real story here. Not the note, not the medication. The fact that no one is talking. What's becoming clear is that this isn't just a legal battle. It's a test of how far Smith's power really extends, of how much the industry is willing to overlook, of how many people are willing to stay silent to keep the machine running, and the scariest part, we still don't know the half of it. Because if Joseph's claims are true, if there really was a coordinated effort to silence him, then the question isn't just what happened in that hotel room. It's what's happening in all the other rooms, the ones we don't know about yet.
And you're asking me to kind of hypothesize on what may have happened in this case. And again, as an attorney, our job is to advocate for our clients, to figure out the facts. At this point, the only side of the story I know is from what my client tells me.
Sure.
We want to do the discovery. We want to get into the weeds of this case. We want to figure out exactly what happened. who was involved in this, and there's ways that we can figure that stuff out.
The panic isn't just coming from Smith's legal team. It's spreading through his inner circle. Sources close to the situation say some of Smith's longest-standing friends and collaborators are now scrambling, worried their own names might get pulled into the fallout. This isn't just about one lawsuit anymore. It's about who knew what, who looked the other way, and who might have been involved in ways that haven't yet surfaced. The fear isn't just about reputational damage. It's about legal exposure. Because if Joseph's claims about the hotel room intrusion are true, if there really was a coordinated effort to silence him, then the question isn't just what Smith knew, it's what his closest allies did to help make it happen. One name being whispered in particular is that of a longtime associate, a producer who's been tied to Smith for over a decade and was heavily involved in the tour's logistics. Insiders claim this individual had direct oversight of the Las Vegas leg of the tour, including hotel bookings and crew access. If the key to Joseph's room really did go missing from a van controlled by Smith's team, this is the person who would have known. And if the intrusion wasn't random, if it was planned, then this associate would have been in a position to facilitate it, or at the very least, to cover it up afterward. The problem? This isn't someone who can afford to be dragged into a scandal. This is a man with his own deals, his own partnerships, and a career that's just as carefully constructed as Smith's. If his name gets tied to this, the dominoes don't just fall for him, they fall for everyone connected to him.
You need to find a way to make sure your wife ain't talking about your private business.
But it's not just one person who's sweating. The entire inner circle is on edge because of how this case is being framed. Not as an isolated incident, but as part of a pattern. Joseph's lawyer has already made it clear he's not just going after Smith, he's going after the system. And in Hollywood, systems don't just protect one man, they protect an entire network. The fear now is that if this case gains traction, if more people start talking, the investigation won't stop at a hotel room in Las Vegas. It'll spread to every tour, every project, every NDA that's ever been signed to keep someone quiet. That's why the silence from Smith's camp isn't just strategic, it's desperate. Because the more this unravels, the more names get pulled into the light. And some of those names? They've got even more to lose than Smith does. So here's where we are. A violinist with evidence, a superstar with everything to lose, and a system that spent years perfecting the art of making problems disappear. The lawsuit is just at the beginning. The real fight is about to start. And the one thing we know for sure is that Will Smith doesn't lose. Not on camera, not in public. The question is what he's willing to do to keep it that way. Now it's your turn. Do you think Joseph's telling the truth? Or is this just another attempt to take down a powerful man? Who do you think Stone F really is? And why has no one come forward to claim that name? And the biggest question of all, if this is how Smith's team handles one accuser, how many others have been silenced before him? Drop your theories in the comments. This story isn't over, not by a long shot. Stay sharp.